All right. I'd like to welcome you all to the fourth meeting of the Milton Planning Board. Today is September 22nd, and I should announce that this is being broadcast and taped. My name is Emily Ennis. I'm the chairman, and I'll ask the other members to introduce themselves.
Ed Duffy, member.
Peter Jackson.
Bernie Lynch, member.
Diane Colligan, secretary.
Alex Whiteside, member.
Bill Clark, planning director.
So normally we would start with the approval of the past minutes, but we don't have them today. So I'll announce our future meetings. The next two meetings are October 13th and 27th. They are here and they begin at 6:30 p.m. First item on our agenda is citizen speak. If we have any citizens who would like to come forward, I should let you know that we will have a public hearing at 6:40 for 95 Elliott Street. And we have two items of old business, 683, 685 Brush Hill Road and 597 Randolph Avenue. Are there any citizens who'd like to speak at this point? No? Okay. In that case, since the public hearings doesn't start till 6:40, I will ask our planning director.
Hey, Mike, today's the
to go ahead and
22nd.
give his report.
Thing I wrote quick.
Put you on the spot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But it won't take 10 minutes. I've been dealing with the Green Community grant that the town received and coordinating with Bill Ritchie, the Consolidated Facilities Director, to implement the grant and save energy costs, mainly in this building, but we've been looking at street lights, pumps outside of this building, other lights that are owned by the town that we can lessen the wattage, therefore lessen the money we pay to NSTAR. I've been dealing with the wind turbine documentation, dealing with the appeals that have been filed by Quarry Hills, and dealing with paperwork just for the planning board for the different projects before it.
Mm-hmm. Anybody have any questions for
How
Bill?
about East Milton?
East Milton parking is,
Let me tell you a story about what
you
happened
add?
to me today as I was going down Boulevard Street. It was midday and there wasn't a lot of traffic, and the two lights were red, and then one of them, the far one, went green and stayed green for 30 or 40 seconds, and then my light, the light at Boulevard, went green itself, and then the other one quickly went red, so that I had a two-light cycle to get across to East Milton, and I don't think that's a friendly light cycle.
I think that's fine for when you approach. Yes, I understand that. But wasn't that the plan?
That's the Alex Whiteside provision, correct?
I love stories. Actually, what happened down there is during Hurricane Irene, one of the circuits blew up. So they've replaced it. We have not gone back and timed all the lights to be in sync with one another. All the lights work. We did want to take and do a test down there and see if we could try out the hybrid plan. That was the Traffic Commission's plan. That was what the BCAC, the Business and Citizen Advisory Committee, had hoped would happen. Before we could get to it, Hurricane Irene blew out one of the circuits. We're still dealing with the issue of how far do we want to go with this? Is it a park that we can do nothing with? Is it, how far do we take this? It's still discussions going on with the selectmen. So we haven't taken and spent any money down there except to replace what blew out during the storm. As we move forward, we'll have to go back and coordinate those lights pretty quickly, but that's where it is.
Yeah, Bernie Ann's got a question. He's been waiting.
The East Milton boy give you even more on that subject. It's a dangerous situation, because if you like the first car on Boulevard Street, you're not looking at the light above, you're looking at the light at the firehouse, because when that would turn green in the old days, both lights would be turned green simultaneously. So if you're looking at the light at the firehouse turning green and you go, you're going to hit the cars coming on Sheldon Street, on Bryant Avenue. I've called,
It's the same issue if you go in front of the post office. There's a pedestrian light there, and people aren't looking at that light, they're looking at the two in front of them that lead into the square, because there's 3 lights there, they don't see the one that's directly over their head.
I have talked to Jack Calabro about it. He's aware of it. He's endeavoring to get it back on the old system, but right now he should be aware, it's very dangerous. And if you're looking at that one and not the one controlling, you're in trouble.
Sure.
The other thing, Madam Chair, a friend of mine is having a birthday tomorrow. It's M. Joseph Manning, my neighbor and friend. And I think no one has done more service over the years to the town of Milton than Joe Manning. So I just want to announce happy birthday to Joe Manning. Thank you.
Bernie, you have a question?
Yeah, Bill, are they ever going to try the hybrid plan, just the traffic pattern, to see how it might work?
I'm still discussing it with the selectmen.
Christmas would be a good time to do it.
It might
Thank you
just
for that
end
opinion,
that day.
Mr. Latham. You want to go when?
I say it's really not a bad idea, just to maybe try it for a couple of days to see if it's going to work or not going to work.
The Traffic Commission agrees with you. The Business and Citizen Advisory Committee agrees with you. The Chamber agrees with you.
Which is the technical.
We're working on it.
But the selectmen don't.
No, not, it's still in discussion with them, how to get it done. I think they're going to let it happen, it's just a matter of how.
Any other questions? We have 4 more minutes.
Any other birthdays we can think of?
We will, I'll give you something to think about, which is on item 5, we will be discussing potential articles for the May 2012 annual town meeting. It is certainly not too early to be starting about that. So you have between now and the time we get there to come up with some good articles.
I got a call earlier this evening, Madam Chair, very early, late this afternoon, regarding St. Elizabeth's, whether or not it's on the agenda, so you might want to tell the people.
Yes,
about
it is. I'm sorry, I said 597 Randolph Avenue. That is the St. Elizabeth's property. Thank you for reminding me. So that is definitely on the agenda.
Thank you.
3 minutes. You've got nothing else?
No.
No exciting seminars coming up? No, Southern New England
I actually,
APA is coming up
that's right.
in October.
I'll send the invitation out to the board that Southeastern New England, or Southeastern New England?
I think it's, yeah, you're right, Southeastern New
Southeastern
England.
New England, APA is down in Providence in October.
21st to 22nd, I think.
There is a DHCD downtown workshop in Amherst, which, gee, the chairman wanted you to go.
Amherst,
Amherst.
nice
It
town.
was the 2 of us to go, but it was her boss that's giving it.
It wasn't my boss that was why I wanted you to go to, it's on form-based code. I thought you would find it fascinating.
4 days, what could be greater than that?
2.5 hour ride, Dave.
Yeah.
And then
Right, exactly, the ride might be better than that.
2.5 hour ride and then a whole morning, no, a whole day actually,
day,
on
9 to-
form-based code,
9 to
Alex,
3.
you would love it. So,
Well,
So-
you'll be interested to know also that the case involving 333 Hillside Street and whether or not there can be a 1-lot subdivision and whether or not constructive approval can occur on a 81Y plan is going to trial next Monday.
I heard that
That's
today.
exciting. Will you be there?
I'm going to go. And
Have to go? Have you been
might-
summoned to go?
I haven't been summoned. I have volunteered to be
Friendly
present
witness, good.
in case they want a witness. But they are not sure that whether they want a witness.
So you'll be there just in case.
But I'm a potential witness.
Good to know. Well done, Alex.
Well, thank you. And what time is it now?
6:39.
I think that clock's going back.
6:40, yes.
I'm sure it's
Okay.
6:40 somewhere.
It's 6:40.
6:40, that works. By the time I announce what we're doing, it will be 6:40. So the first public hearing on our agenda is 95 Elliott Street. It is site plan approval for a proposed restaurant. It is now 6:40, and you should all have received the drawings in your packet at our last meeting, but I will now ask the proponents to come and introduce themselves.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Attorney Bob Sheffield, and I'm pleased to represent Dan Kerrigan, the manager of Milton Opus LLC, who plans to put a restaurant in the Fallon Building on Elliott Street near Central Avenue. Last night, we appeared before the Board of Appeals, and the Board of Appeals unanimously gave us a permit to change the use for the facility from an ambulance building to a restaurant, and also reviewed the parking and determined that under Section 7 of our bylaw, there was an adequacy of off-street parking to service the restaurant. We are now starting a site plan review, and I would like to introduce Dan Kerrigan to go over the proposal.
Great. Thank you, Attorney Sheffield.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Innes and the board. I appreciate you hearing me today. This is my business partner, Bill Scannell, a Milton native and longtime resident, and still has much family in the community as well.
Yes, sir.
I have a little bit of literature for you.
Great.
Not bore you too much.
Break it on over there.
I might stand if that's all right.
Absolutely.
But speak into the microphone.
Certainly.
Maybe
Take
you,
that over.
maybe you have to take it with you.
Just put it on the.
What's his name? What's his name?
I just have my car repaired right there and that.
We can still work something out.
So just a few renderings here. Is this, how close does this need to be?
Yeah. They'll let you know.
Just a few renderings here of sort of what we're proposing to do to the exterior of the building. We obviously a couple of shots of the interior, a couple of shots of the existing building now and what we're looking to do. The plans call for a new awning on the exterior, a railing along the street side, and a small terrace on a dining terrace on the front. There are some interior renderings as well. We can get into those in a few. So the concept for the restaurant would be a modern American tavern, sort of American local-based fare, reasonably priced. We want to offer good value, from scratch cooking, very high quality, but simple and affordable, and a welcoming atmosphere for everyone. We're looking to be open 7 nights per week. I've listed some hours in the details, and of course have weather permitting the terrace open. We'd also like to be open for Sunday brunch, and we plan to open for lunch. Once the restaurant's established and we start to build a clientele, we'd like to open for lunch if we think the market persists. We'll sort of bear it. The restaurant will be 148 seats, broken down into a 63-seat dining room, a small private room that will hold 15, but expand up to 30. When it's fully expanded, those seats will be subtracted from the dining room seats. A 15-stool bar, a 30-seat bar and lounge area, or high-top table and lounge area, and a 25-seat maximum capacity on the terrace. So the total number of seats would be 148. Some modifications we plan for the exterior is basically a resurfacing of the parking lot. We'd like to just hold the tar that's there, level it slightly, and put down new asphalt so it's just not potholes, cracks, slopes up and down, a nice level surface. We plan to build a small railing and a perimeter poured concrete planters around the terrace to keep the terrace from being exposed to the parking lot. Along some plantings around the terrace for privacy, baffle noise, things like that. We do have a full lighting plan. I'll show you in a few minutes a full sketch. We have existing lighting shown. And that's located a few pages in your book if you'd like to take a look at it. But we'll certainly, the goal obviously to be add lighting to the entrances and exits, add lighting at the terrace, and add lighting for safety purposes in the parking lot. This drawing, which I think is the 5th page in on your packet, shows a full parking plan, location for recycling and refuse removal containers, a full lighting plan, entrances, exits, and handicap parking, as well as the dimensions of the patio. I think that's it.
All right. Actually, why don't you go through, I can see on the second page you talk about the refuse removal and recycling.
Certainly.
That in the past has been an issue among not just members of the board, but members of the public who are always concerned about trash. So if you go over that, that'd be great.
Okay. So looking at the site plan, this is Elliott Street. Adams Street is on this end. We plan to locate 2 containers here. One will be for recycling only, and one will be for any food waste and other non-recyclables. Both containers will schedule to pick up once a week on Friday morning. We'll obviously review that. Once the restaurant's open, if they need to be picked up more frequently or less frequently, that's what we'll do. Chances are a one-week pickup for 2 containers will be about appropriate. Boston Disposal is the company that we'll use. They have an extensive recycling program. They offer containers that you can recycle. They'll offer one main container that accepts everything for recycling, except for food waste and styrofoam. So all of your plastics, cardboards, glass, everything goes in that. Obviously, any food waste will be sealed in commercial grade bags, to avoid any bad odors or pests or anything like that. I would anticipate a 8-yard container for recycling and a 5-yard container for food waste. The other part of refuse removal will be grease removal for any fry products, and that will be, again, located in the same area, 150-gallon container, which is completely sealed. No odors from that, no issues with pests at all. And again, that'll be picked up as necessary, I would assume once per month.
How do you get the grease up there?
It would be unloaded in the mornings and just in small containers in the morning when the restaurant's being cleaned.
Any questions from members of the board? Packet?
Where is the kitchen seems to be fairly close to the street. And so I was wondering about your fryolator and your noxious odors.
Okay. The kitchen will actually be located almost in the center of the building and exhausted through the roof. I would say a fryolator will be a very small portion of what cooking goes on in the restaurant. Most of the foods will be grilled or burned or cooked in an oven. Very little frying will go on.
Eddie?
What's the zoning for the area?
Business.
Business zone?
Yep.
Thank you.
Materials on the patio there's a brick wall and then a steel fence. That
I believe with the actual, the renderings and the drawings that you have are limited in that they're not done by hand, so the computer-generated drawings show brick. It will be, and is listed in the text that you have, it will be poured concrete planters. They'll be about 18 inches high.
And the fence in front, what's the
And the
material?
fence will be a metal railing, similar to the railing that's on this end of the parking lot. It's already currently there.
Well, when you say it's a planter, I don't see any computer-generated bushes in it.
So the bushes are shown inside of the wall. They'll actually be planted into the top of the wall. And that's, again, a limitation of the
So
computer-generated.
how wide will the wall be?
18 inches.
So that means there's about 8 inches for planting between the sides?
I'm not certain of that. I don't have a full drawing of the dimensions of the interior of the planters, but it'll be at least 18 inches wide to accommodate planting
I
this
think
side.
that's pretty limited.
Are you thinking of essentially window box plantings for that? You're talking
What
about
I'm thinking is
flowers and
something
herbs
taller,
rather than shrubs?
some taller shrubs to create some privacy, to help create a barrier so it's obvious that you can't travel from the parking lot into the terrace or from the terrace into the parking lot. And just so guest dining aren't, exposed to headlights and cars and
And
traffic.
the idea of the fence is so that people can look in and be jealous.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That'll work. Can you talk a little bit about the projecting canopy that you've got shown?
Sure. So the canopy will be constructed of wood. Sort of the simplest way I can explain it is a tongue and groove planking. So it'll be planks coming perpendicular off the building, but completely solid. And then tied back to the building with metal chains, metal brackets on the building as well, or steel, I should say.
And that's actually projecting, I mean, on one side, obviously on the terrace, it's projecting over your terrace and the entryway, but on the other side, it's actually projecting over the public sidewalk, correct?
It is, and we've
Okay.
brought that up with Mr. Mern and the selectmen as well, and they're going to review that with us, so.
Okay.
You're going to deal with that?
They're going to give him an easement for that particular projection.
Okay.
Have you
License, probably.
thought of putting the terrace
15
in the
feet in
back
the
of the
air.
building?
We did, actually, that was our first thought, was
Got a
that it would be
river.
nice to have the terrace set back from the street,
We have streetcar tracks, but
but what,
the neighbors would,
currently right here, these garage doors will be replaced with opening doors from the dining room out into the terrace. This side of the building has no entry and exit way, and we also have the bar planned for this back side of the building. So to break holes into this side and make openings from the bar area out into the parking lot seemed to make less sense. This front room inside of these garage doors will be a small dining area of about 4 tables. It just seemed to make much better sense to have the dining area sort of flow into the terrace. And the doors are there currently.
And if I remember correctly, you have restaurant experience before as well.
I do. So I currently operate a restaurant in Westwood, Mass. Will be a similar, it is a similar project to what this will be, and it's about 100 seats. We've been there for 6 years now, coming up 6 years in December. The restaurant's Kiara. Similar to the town of Milton in that it was a dry community for many years. In 2005, they began issuing liquor licenses, so we received one of the first licenses. And went through the process that Abbey Park and 88 Wharf have gone through here as sort of the first restaurants in town. We originally built the restaurant with no bar. We had a full liquor license, but no bar to sit at. And after a couple of years of responsible operating, the town actually changed, we appealed the laws, and the town changed the laws for us. So now 6 years, and really a great relationship to the town. It's been a wonderful thing. Really sort of the center of the community.
If I could jump in, that's where I met Dan. I went to the restaurant 6 years ago when they first opened, fell in love with the atmosphere, the food, the people, and having grown up in Milton, I said, I would love to see something like this in Milton, and I'd love to be a part of it. And we started talking about 5 years ago, and we finally get to the point where we found the right location, we found the right person to run it, and I just, I think it'd be a great addition to the town.
Any other questions? You look through this?
I found it very difficult to understand the levels of the restaurant because it is split the way it is. So can you kind of
Absolutely.
go through that a little
I was in
bit?
the building 3 times before I could
Figure out
decipher the
what's
levels.
what. Yeah, and even
The
Even
front
with these
section-
drawings, it's hard to...
The front section of the building, basically, on the drawings shown here, is 2 levels. And the building's basically a split level, so if you enter through this door, you have the option to enter into Cakes. You could go up a half a level, which puts you into the level that we'll occupy, or you could go up a full level, which will put you into the office space above Cakes. So currently, these windows here represent the space that Cakes Bakery operates. The windows above those, which is the clear second level, represents the space that Merck Family Fund currently occupies. And then if you went straight through this doorway and back into this main section of the building here, we sort of span those 2 levels. So our ceiling is the same height as Merck's ceiling. Well, I guess our floor is a half level up from the Cakes floor.
Well, you're showing 3 levels on here, as I read this plan.
I think one's a spin from the other.
If you,
If we're looking
this
at the
plan
right one.
actually shows, this is a good picture of the bottom 3 depictions. There's sort of an empty triangle shape in the corner, which shows the 2 levels. Everything else in the plan is 1 level. We are in this section here, you can see, we are going to add a small mezzanine level, which will be storage space and an office. No dining or guest access at all.
The outdoor terrace is a half level up from where Cakes is that correct?
Correct.
And then you've got a full level up above that.
That's correct, but not above the terrace. So while there's a full level here, this, when you walk through the doorways from the terrace, the ceiling is 20 feet high. So there's not 2 stories, there's just an open space. And I'm guessing on the height.
And the same for the rest of the restaurant,
And
it's all one
exactly, and
big,
the same for
tall.
the rest of the building. I know that's sort of a confusion.
Oh, so the seating and serving area of the restaurant is all on 1 level?
All in 1 level, correct.
Okay, that's very confusing in this.
It is.
Okay, so downstairs at the Cakes level, you've got some parking and storage or whatever. And is that where you'll get your service? Is that where service vehicles are going to bring?
There's actually currently a loading zone on Elliott Street.
Not currently, but you're proposing one.
I think it's actually.
No, it's a
actually
handicap,
marked.
there's a handicap parking spot.
It's been approved, but it's not signed, but it's been approved.
Okay.
Will those spaces still function in their current function? Or are they being taken away? There's a handicap parking space and a regular
He's
parking
talking
space.
across the street.
No, he's talking adjacent to
It's
the
shown
restaurant.
right here.
I was pointing here, but it is across the street.
Right.
Before we go further on that, I will say, I would anticipate all of our deliveries pulling into the parking lot, because they won't be coming during dinner hours, they'll be coming during the morning hours when the restaurant's not open. And the only spaces.
Then where will they unload? Into the main entrance?
Yes, exactly. So there may possibly be a time where they load in through this door. That would be in the rare case that a truck was held up and arrived at 5 p.m. and we had guest dining in the restaurant. But deliveries will be requested prior to 10:30 in the morning, 11 in the morning, in which case the parking lot, the upper level lot, will be mostly empty. Merck Family Fund has 2 spots in this lot of the 24.
Anything else, Eddie?
The dumpster area, I think you might have to consider some security or extra lighting there or something.
Absolutely. We do have a light plan on about 18 feet from the dumpsters. And we're also sort of waiting to see what the best approach is for shielding those from the parking lot. If the health department has any concerns or questions about blocking that off, I think it would be appropriate to have some fencing there as well.
And are the dumpsters locked so that somebody can't access them that doesn't have authorization?
If the dumpsters had no fencing or gate or anything like that, they certainly would be locked,
Okay.
just because we won't want them filled up. But I think chances are they'll be gated in.
I would say that they would be gated.
And screened.
I mean, and the gating would provide the screening. And actually like to know about that.
Yeah, we would like to discuss that.
We'd like to know about some of the materials you're going to use on your terrace. We are a little, we think that you might think about putting more planting space in the interior so that you can get a better growing
It's a great idea.
climate.
Certainly.
But specification of the materials you're going to use, we do want to do that because we're going to hold you to it.
Okay.
So you're going to have to decide. And the Board of Health, I would think would be able to say something about how the dumpsters should be treated. I think they just want them to be kept secure
And clean.
Screen.
clean, and so they are not a nuisance.
And screening them will add to the attractiveness of the property anyway, so it's
Sure.
in your best interest at that point.
So come up with a screening plan for them.
Certainly will.
Any other questions or considerations?
Well, I'm looking at the site plan here, and the parking plan, it looks like a lot, that several of these spaces are very either undersized or difficult to negotiate. I don't know if you've talked with the town engineer or anything about that parking layout, because I don't think they conform to any standards.
There is, I believe, I'm not sure the exact number, there are some compact car spaces, but they are within the allotted amount, or the allotted percentage for the number of spaces that we have.
16 and 17 looks like a compact,
Exactly.
Well,
And I
and
think there's
20
some
through
compact spaces
23.
along
along Elliott.
20 to
Certainly we have to
23.
have it reviewed by
Yeah. I'm a little confused about the curb lines at the patio, the building entry, and this area behind, which I guess is just unused space. It seems like you could bring your curb right across there and create a more attractive building entry for pedestrians walking in. If you brought your curb line straight across this way, and then this would be, you know, a pedestrian space here, I don't understand functionally how that does anything for you. And then you've got this big empty space there that, you know, maybe it'd be a good idea to put some plantings or something over there. So I think that the building entry and you know, it looks like there almost should be like a drop-off, that people would come in to drop people off, and if you could create a more attractive drop-off and entry here, I think that would be a better situation.
Also, your ramp into the entry, and I think it's partly to do with the limitations of computer rendering, but the appearance is that it's quite steep. It's a short ramp and it looks steep.
There will be no ramp. into
Okay,
the-
so
the
then-
parking lot will actually be level moving in, and I think that's just, again, the computer drawings are just showing.
So that's, it looks like a
Good
ramp,
job.
but it's
Yes,
not.
yeah.
Okay. It's just a change in material at that point.
So we probably will need an engineered plan to approve by the time we approve this thing, as opposed to this illustrative plan.
You have it? You have an engineer's plan of this thing?
Of the site,
Yeah.
of the exterior.
Of what you're going to do?
Showing the changes to the lot.
to the lot.
Did you
So
talk
we're
about
not- we're not
regrading a little
excavating the
bit?
lot, we're not changing the earth, it's literally just clearing the broken pavement that's there and repaving. So
Okay.
as we clear it, it'll just be leveled out. Any potholes or dips or bumps will just be leveled out and then repaved.
Well,
So currently, if you see the current pictures, the lot currently flows directly up to this garage door, which will be the main entryway.
right, but that's 3 feet higher than the patio level. So there's
And
definitely
the-
change in grade there, and how that works from a grading and an entry and a handicap entry point of view, I think, you know, is something that's got to be, there's got to be an engineered plan.
Okay.
You might consider, too, tying in the paving that's in front of the entryway to similar materials to what's on the terrace to keep the continuity of the materials there, possibly even connecting them, just for the visual appeal of doing that. And then that might help with how you're thinking about that entryway. Eddie, you had a question?
Yes, Emily. Near parking space number 37, I think maybe lighting would be needed there? The corner there of the
There's actually existing lighting there now.
street light,
There is, yep.
public light?
Yes.
Thank you. And it's sufficient?
It is. It's well lit, and there's, if you see where the entryway to Cake's Bakery is, there's 3 lamps on that wall as
Yeah.
well. So both sides of that driveway are well lit.
Thank you.
So pursuing, when I suggested materials, it seems to me you're going to be doing a fair amount of window treatment and door treatment, and I think that we need some elevations showing what you're going to do and specifying what the windows and doors are going to look like.
Okay,
Even if you can specify what kind of.
okay.
But we some elevations just showing the window treatment and the door treatment, because that's going to be important.
What did you use for generating the drawings? What program?
This is the program that our architect uses. I believe it's called Revit.
Okay, then they should easily be able to come up with those from the work they've
And
already
there-
done.
There are elevation drawings, probably not in the packet that you have.
Okay.
Okay, so that's good.
Nice work on Revit, by the way. Your architects are doing some good work there.
I think you did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
It's not cheap.
Can you talk a little bit about what the Board of Appeals finding was relative to parking, what you presented and what they found?
Yes, absolutely.
It seems is significantly under what our standards would
Seem.
require for parking.
Okay, so the parking discussion that we had last night was there will be 38 off-street parking spots allocated for the restaurant, which is just a little bit more than 1 for every 4 seats. That parking breakdown is actually on the, I believe on the 2nd page.
Yep.
There's a brief description, because it is a little bit confusing how we, or the 3rd page is the narrative.
We want to know what the
But this plan shows 37 spaces, and some of them are allocated to others.
Yes. So
actual appearance.
there's 24 spaces in the upper lot.
Yeah.
There's 7 spaces that we're allocating to the restaurant in the lower lot, and there's 7 spaces that we're allocating to the restaurant in the lower level garage. Of all the spots in the parking lots, Cake's Bakery has 5 assigned spots. Those will be for the exclusive use of cakes. Merck Family Fund has 2 assigned spots, which they use Monday through Friday during business hours, 9 to 5. So we've agreed that we'll use those spaces in the evenings after Merck has vacated them and on the weekends, which is obviously essentially our peak volume times. And then additionally, we'll have the exclusive use of 7 spaces in the lower level garage.
Some of those elevations that the board was looking for, I've already given to you before, but knowing you might forget them, I did make copies.
Well, good.
Us?
So
Forget
continuing the
things?
parking discussion, so you've got 38 spaces available to you for 148 to 163, depending on that flex space you've got.
It's 148 maximum seating,
And that includes the
inclusive
patio.
of the terrace and the private dining.
And the patio, we have seating for 25.
Right, that's
Only
part of
be-
that.
That's part of that, and that would only be seasonal.
Yeah, the private dining room, it says 15 to 30, but I guess those are taken from somewhere else.
Those are taken from the dining area.
Okay, so it's 148 spaces, so we're getting 38 parking spaces for seating for 148? And what was the Board of Appeals, I mean, what did they say? Those are the numbers they reviewed?
Those are the numbers they reviewed, and they also looked at the fact that Elliott Street has ample service-owned parking that would be used by the employees.
Okay, so the employees would use service zone on Elliott Street.
Right, and that with the service zone parking, with the fact that there are 38 available parking spaces, with the fact that the patio would only be used seasonally, they considered that the 38 off-street parking was fully adequate for the needs of the restaurant.
Do you know when they'll be able to give you their written decision?
I have a bad habit of trying to push for written decisions on those we need. However, I didn't ask for the most expeditious written decision. it's up to them. And it generally takes a couple of weeks, sometimes
Because we
a
usually
little longer.
refer to it, as you know, we refer to their decision and our decision.
By all means,
Discussing the
when you're
parking.
ready to vote on it, we will have the written decision, and it will be submitted to the planning board for its records.
Thank you.
Okay, so their finding was that they found that 38 spaces would be adequate for the restaurant use.
Yes.
And I guess we will find whether or not the spaces are adequate for vehicular use. In other words, if these spaces are the right size. So you're going to give us some measurements.
And the measurements are,
There's
Yeah,
measurements
you
on
can
there.
actually see them
Oh,
on the
this one.
plan.
There's just a couple that seem to be tight, and look at that in an engineered plan.
Under the parking regulations, up to 25% of the number of parking spaces can be for smaller sized vehicles, and not more than 25%. And there are some undersized vehicle spaces depicted there.
and this is also a modification of an approved parking plan from 2009, which was approved for the previous use of the building. We've modified it to add additional handicap spaces. When we did so, we did remove one space and changed a couple of spaces to compact.
And I see you've got 2 handicap spaces on here, correct?
On the top level.
On the top level.
There's also a handicap space currently, I believe on the street,
Yes.
at the
yeah.
lower level entrance.
Okay. And you said there are 7 spaces in the garage. How would people know to access the garage?
That's going to really be managed by the restaurant. So
Okay.
the maitre d' staff, the management of the restaurant will encourage the first guests to use those spaces. And of course, if the restaurant's busy and those spaces are not in use, we can direct guests down there. Not a full-on valet service, but if we found that the spaces, if things weren't working out correctly, we could review that. But it's simple open parking under the building.
Anything else? All right. If there's nothing else, if we continue this to our next meeting in October, what did I say, the 13th, would that be enough time for you to come back with? Yes, October 13th. Do we have anything else already scheduled for that date? We've got 131 Elliott's coming in at 6:40. Is that right?
I thought there was 7 o'clock.
Did we do some 7 o'clock? Okay, so what time should we do this for? 7:30 or 6:40?
It'll probably take more than 20 minutes.
I would say so. So 7:30 on the 13th?
Great.
Excellent.
On the 13th?
On the 13th, October 13th.
I guess I just have one comment about what you said about the management, the dumpster, and I think the selectmen in giving you your license will go over that in great detail. But the idea of emptying it once a week and have it during the day on Friday, that means all the refuse from Friday night and Saturday and all the week is sitting there for a week. I think it'd be better off emptying it on Monday so that, it's not sitting there for a week. And I think you probably will find once a week is inadequate, but that will be gone over in great detail by the selectmen and the Board of Health, I know.
And obviously, we're going to do whatever we have to at this restaurant to make it a top-notch,
Right.
well-attended,
We have no doubt.
great addition to the neighborhood.
Right.
Food is going to be so good.
It's so good.
It's going to be the Clean Plate Club.
That's why I'm doing it with them. The food is so good.
Excellent. Well, we'll see you on the 13th then.
Hey,
Thank
thanks
you
very much,
Your
everyone.
time.
What they're expected to bring.
Did you take notes on what you were expected to bring? Okay. So you can always, if you want to double check with Bill, you can always check with him.
He
just to
doesn't
make
know,
sure that
that's
we
why he
get
wants
everything.
the list.
But I asked you to give the list.
Give the list so he could write it down.
Just ask Bill.
Diana
you
will
could listen
it
to the
down.
tape.
Yeah, you could do, Bill. All right. Next item on our agenda.
Very great to see you.
Where did that piece of paper go? Did you
Thanks very much.
make all your corrections?
Good job, Tim.
Because I gave all of my sheets to Alex for corrections.
We'll go make the changes.
So let's discuss it.
Well, let's discuss it. Give me at least one sheet so I have it in front of me. Because I gave them all to you, Alex. No, don't give me that one. That's the one with the changes. Here, give me that one.
Want to go through the changes?
All right. Okay, so we're going to start this off. Basically, what we have is a document that requires to be changed. I'm going to let you know what the document is, and then
We
Bill's...
started the next order
Yes.
of business? Okay.
Yes, I announced it, but you're right. There were a number of people moving around. So we're going to start 683 to 685 Brush Hill Road. The planning board has a document that we need to vote on tonight. I'm going to read it to all of you with Alex's changes to it. But basically, we had received a letter yesterday from Anthony Rosito. It says, I, Anthony Rosito of Corvo Construction, 21 Mazzeo Drive, number 1, Randolph, Mass. 02368, requests that my application for approval of the definitive subdivision plan dated December 31st, 2010, regarding the property located at 683, 685 Brush Hill Road in Milton, Massachusetts, be allowed to be withdrawn without prejudice. And it is signed. And then as soon as Bill finishes writing, I will read the language that we will discuss, which would be at the planning board meeting held on Thursday, September 22nd, 2011, at the Milton Town Office Building. Applicant Anthony Rosito of Corvo Construction, 21 Mazzeo Drive, number 1, Randolph, Massachusetts, 02368, requested that the application for approval of a definitive subdivision plan dated December 31st, 2010, regarding the property located at 683, 685 Brush Hill Road in Milton, Massachusetts, be withdrawn without prejudice. After discussion, which we're about to have, it was unanimously voted that the application dated September 22nd, 2011 is hereby withdrawn without prejudice, issued by the planning board this 22nd day of September 2011. I'm reading it out loud to you because Alex had made some changes to the language, and Bill is going to go and make those changes as we have our discussion. We may have to send them back or possibly not for another round.
Maybe we should wait till we know
What it's going to be? Well, then that's true. We could take a little leg stretch break. So, anybody have any questions on the board? With the applicant?
Do we have any background of what this is all about?
Well, I found out yesterday after work, and Bill would be the one who spoke. I have not spoken to Anthony. Bill would be the one who had that conversation. So if you could fill us in, that would be helpful. If you have anything more than just simply the letter withdrawing the application.
He's asking that he be allowed to withdraw. He has a PNS that goes through the end of October. As it is right now, he's not inclined to move forward with the budget.
That's what I suspect was the reason. So it, presumably the commissioner will seek another buyer.
Presumably.
And so all the discussion about preserving the house will start anew.
I would.
Because I think he has the right to withdraw his application, and the board has no authority to require him to pursue an application that he wants to be withdrawn.
I don't see how we would have that authority.
So I think that we have to allow this application to be withdrawn without prejudice. It does. If anyone coming in again has to pay a new fee and start from scratch.
Yes, and I think that's a key thing, is that the public hearings would start over again.
The
So,
question, Madam
yes, of course.
Chairman, how did we receive this request?
I believe it was through you, Bill.
Anthony came in
Oh, he
to
came
me
in.
yesterday.
So you kind of like notarized his signature and so forth?
He gave him
He
he
gave
gave
me
him
the-
this
Yeah, okay,
document.
but it just seems like, you
I
know,
have it in. I have
big
it-
thing is happening and
He came in and signed it in front of me. We went through the wording, and I made the last changes to the page. He signed it.
Just hold on. Well, I'll call for any public questions because I know there's a lot of interested people here in a minute. But let me just finish with the board first as far as any questions, and then we'll allow people to ask questions as well. So are there any further questions from the board as to the situation or as to our ability to act?
Well,
We have to act by
Sounds like
tomorrow.
we have to act, and so any new potential buyer or developer that comes forward really has to start as if this never happened. So we haven't committed to the findings of that subdivision plan to any future proponent. It starts at ground zero would be my guess.
Absolutely. That's my understanding. Alex, you can
Well,
clarify.
I think that obviously someone else who comes in with the same plan, we're not going to.
It still has to be a full public process.
It will be
You
a
can't-
full, it
yes.
would be a full public process, but since we've gotten as close as we've gotten, it seems to me we wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel if the plan were the same, but it doesn't have to be the same. It could be
no.
anything.
It doesn't have to be the same. They would still, as you said earlier, they'd still have to pay an application fee. They'd have to submit the full application. We'd still have to go through the public hearing process. If they just simply use the same plan, some of our questions would already have been answered, certainly on the site engineering. But in a public process, as you know, more questions can always arise. And if they don't come in with the same plan, it's from scratch. Yep.
Can Anthony DeCito, can he, can the prospective buyer just take over what, all the stuff that has happened? I mean, just like if you buy a house, it says, oh, you're a signee when you show up to pass papers. I mean,
He could assign his purchase and sale agreement and the application, but we've got to decide this tomorrow, and that's not what he's done. He didn't assign it. He asked that his application be withdrawn. And it's his application.
Right, he is the applicant, which means that's, once it's withdrawn, it has no legal value at that point. It's done, it's
Obviously,
withdrawn,
obviously.
yeah. Now, as far as the plans that he did, I would assume that they are his or his engineer's intellectual property.
Right.
And presumably, he could sell them on to somebody. I suppose he could give them to somebody if he wanted to, but there's no obligation on him to give them to anybody else.
do we know that there might be another buyer out there that we,
No, I asked Bill, and he doesn't know either, although he can certainly speak for himself when he comes through. Because this is under a commissioner, I'm assuming that there's a legal procedure that they would have to follow in order to find another buyer. But, you know, we don't have any information on that, to my knowledge. Anything else from the board? If not, I know there's some people with some questions. I'll open it up to them. This, of course, just to let you know, is not a public hearing process. The public hearing process was closed quite some time ago, but because it has been an issue that's had a lot of questions attached to it, I'm perfectly happy to hear from all of you. I know the other board members are as well, as to any questions you might have this. As I said, I found out myself about 7 o'clock last night that this is happening. So I don't have much more information, but happy to hear your questions. So please, I saw your hand first, and you're welcome to come forward. Identify yourself.
Yeah,
and-
I'm Ed Fallon, speaking for my mother, Beverly Fallon. Last week, I had given the board an actual order from the court showing that Anthony Ricito and the purchase and sale agreement expired August 1st. So for him, in that he had no standing with the withdrawal of the application. He can try to withdraw, but for the board to even allow that, when actually it was the commissioner and the owners that he did, if you actually look at it, the owners are the ones that wanted the subdivision approval. So for this to be going on, when I even asked the board last week, I said to the board, could you still do the subdivision approval without Mr. Ricito? And you said yes.
We could do it without him present.
No,
With
I
an
asked,
assignment, with a legal assignment. It's his application. He is the applicant.
yes, but even,
If he's not the applicant, there is no applicant.
yes, but also by town law, the applicant is supposed to be an owner.
No, he can be someone under a purchase and sales agreement, and the commissioner
Then it's.
did notify us that the purchase and sales agreement was open till the end of October. But it doesn't matter. I mean, whether it's open or not, he's the applicant.
It does matter because the applicant was actually then in error in the sense that it should have been the commissioner that did
It's
it.
still going to get, if it's withdrawn, there's no harm done.
No, there is a lot of harm done
What's
because
the
there's
harm?
a lot of harm done to the family and to this whole process. You're talking 3 years of work. Our family's been sitting and waiting 3 years for the subdivision approval, and now this board, just the flick of a finger, is now saying, oh, no, we're going to withdraw it because a particular applicant who doesn't really have standing anymore.
You have no standing because you're not an applicant. You never put yourself on the application.
Actually, it says Margaret Boyle's estate. It's in lieu of Margaret Boyle's estate. It says it right on it.
Okay, but
Joe
hold on a
Boyle and
second.
Margaret Boyle's
First
estate.
of all, your terminology is slightly off. We are not withdrawing the application. The applicant is withdrawing the
And I'm
application.
explaining that the applicant does not have standing to withdraw.
He may or may not have standing in your opinion, but as the signed applicant to a document and a plan that's in front of the board, he has legal standing with the board as the applicant. Therefore, he is the only one who is able to withdraw this document. And because he has withdrawn it with a properly signed letter, and because our last letter from him gave us until tomorrow to file any action, we must vote on it tonight.
So there is no extension for, because, I mean,
You can't grant an extension.
The applicant is only one who can grant an extension, and he has not
I
done
know
so.
this,
He has
to be honest, I
withdrawn the
can feel that
application.
this is, even your procedure, there's something flawed. I know your procedure is flawed, because he is not, the commissioner, if it was the commissioner withdraw it, that'd be different.
The
But
commissioner
Commissioner
is not
has
an
never
applicant.
entered an
He's
appearance
the only,
with us.
well, I know, but the commissioner is actually the one that has the, by the court, has the only authority.
But he's
So-
not the applicant.
It doesn't matter. You you allowed someone to apply for something that he didn't have standing to apply for. So let's start right from
Look, he
there.
said he had standing. You're saying he didn't have standing. If he had no standing, we would have dismissed the application, and we're basically doing that
And-
by letting him withdraw it.
In fact, if by your argument,
Yes.
he has no standing, then the application has no standing, and the public hearings would have had no standing. It wouldn't exist anyway.
Well, see, I was
So you're
looking-
arguing against yourself
No,
on
because
this one.
actually, last week when I asked that you could approve it without him, that's what I meant. If he
And
was off
then
the...
we misunderstood you and understood the question to be, could we approve it without his particular presence at the hearing, which we could. But that's not what the situation is here. The situation is here that he's withdrawing his application.
And I'm saying that it's still Margaret Boyle and the estate of Margaret Boyle. It's still on that application. There's two
But
parties.
they never signed it. The estate of Margaret Boyle never signed the application.
Yes, the commissioner
The
signed.
application was signed by Anthony Rosito.
Could I see a copy of that application?
I was actually just going to ask, Bill, do we
Yeah.
have a copy of the application?
No, that's not it.
No, while he's looking that up, I'd like to recognize a couple of other people, and then we'll make sure that you get to see that. Does anybody else wish to speak to this?
You know what I'm saying?
Any other? Yes, come forward, please, and introduce yourself for the cameras.
I am Paul Andriani, 671 Brush Hill Road. I just have a question, because one time, talking to Anthony Riosito, he said, you know, I didn't even have to go through this whole process. If I could have built this or developed this land without requesting any variances at all. Is there a possibility that he could buy the property again and then submit a new plan without requesting variances and start all over again without going through this whole process?
He's required to come to the board under the Subdivision Control Act. That's a state law. He cannot subdivide that property without coming to the board. He could put a single house on it without coming to the board, but he cannot subdivide it and put multiple houses on it without coming to the board, unless there's a ZBA variance I don't know about.
I think that what you were talking about is that there were all kinds of waivers that
Yeah.
we would have had to grant in order to make this the country lane, to do the country lane concept. If he had come in with a plan, he could have torn down all the trees, driven a road straight up, and needed no waivers to do a
Right.
Single family
subdivision as of right. The potential was there that he could have done a subdivision without requesting any waivers from the planning board. And in such a case, if he had, then the board would have had to approve the application.
Is that still a possibility? if he
It is,
decides to
it
buy
is,
it?
it's a possibility, but it doesn't, he could always amend this application to do something different.
Well, he can't amend his application now
Once
because
he
he's
withdraws
withdrawing
it.
it.
Well, exactly.
He would actually have to submit and pay for a new application at this point.
Right.
So I don't know if the likelihood of somebody withdrawing an application and then within a month
'Cause
submitting a new one, but he could do it, yes.
I'm talking to the Fallons. It seemed like one of the issues was my attaching my driveway to his road. And he actually called my lawyer one day and said, we need to sit down and talk about this road. And my lawyer said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, let me call my client, myself, and then I'll call you back, or call me back, or something. He never called back. Alexis Fallon thought that the issue was that he wanted compensation for the road or something. But anyway, where does that leave me? Basically, it's the same where I am now.
Right where you are now.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right.
There's no I mean, once this is withdrawn, there's no application in front of the board. You would have to deal with either the commission or whoever the new property owner would be.
It hurts everybody, this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had a P&S for this property to buy it, correct?
Yes, and a
So is he
question came up while
forfeiting
you-
his deposit?
A question came up while you were out of the room as to the extent of the P&S. Was it August or October? And you had told me
It's the-
October.
End of October, beginning of November.
And he can probably assign that P&S. I mean, he doesn't have to show up, his assignee can show up.
When you go back and look at the document from Land Court, he pays a monthly fee back to the commissioner for every extension, and he is paid through the end of October. When I talked to Anthony, he said he's paid up through the end of October. When I talked to Mr. Whiting, who's the commissioner, he said it's through the end of October, beginning of November. So whatever that date is, I'm not sure of the exact date, but he has paid his money through that time.
And did you tell Mr. Whiting that he was withdrawing, that Anthony Rosito was withdrawing the
sent-
application?
What you got, I sent to Mr. Whiting.
Did you hear back from him?
No, and Anthony has also, I actually asked Anthony today, and he said he has been trying to contact Mr. Whiting.
Okay. All right.
Does anyone know why he is deciding to abandon the project? I mean,
He
it's
felt it
kind
was
of-
too difficult to do.
Presumably, as a businessman, he made himself a profit and loss decision. I have a copy of the application here. It lists the owner as Joseph Boyle et al., care of Jan Whiting Esquire, and the address there. It lists the applicant as Anthony Rosito, Corvo Construction. The signature of the owner is Jan Whiting, Commissioner. The signature of the applicant is Anthony Rosito.
Jan Whiting is still the owner.
He's the owner, he's not the applicant.
Yeah, but you need both to even do it, and you
But
still need both.
he's
to
not.
withdraw.
No, I'm sorry, you only need the applicant to withdraw it. And he's the only applicant.
But when we sign this, Mr. Whiting can appeal,
It's true,
because we're filing this with the town clerk.
Yes.
tomorrow, as a matter of
Tomorrow.
fact.
But it's, you know, it's too bad, because actually the board has put a lot of work into this, and if you think that we're happy about this, you're wrong. But we don't have any legal ability to get out of,
How can you tell me there's no legal ability?
there
So
is
what
no
happens
legal
If
ability.
if you approve the subdivision, what is the legal
We
ramification?
can't, there's no applicant. The application was submitted by the applicant. If the applicant withdraws the application, we can't approve the application. It's just common sense says that if the applicant says,
Okay, next
remove
time,
my
to
application,
keep this pain from ever happening again, make sure the applicant's the owner or the commissioner
no,
signing.
the law says the applicant doesn't have to be the owner.
No.
That's what the law says.
Actually, not from what your town law says.
Well, the town does not require the applicant to be the owner.
Subdivision is under, subdivision
The
control
applicant, the
act.
person who applies for the approval of the plan, proposed subdivision, construction of way, and the applicant or applicants must be the owner or owners of all land included in the proposed subdivision. Okay? There it is, right there.
But where is it? I'm sorry, where is
Where
that
is
Citing.
from?
Citing.
What section is that?
I'll ask my sister on this citing. It's right there.
Well,
Is
that's
it,
not in the, either the rules or regulations or the zoning. I don't know where that came from.
and either
That's for the
way,
applicant, the application process.
And
That's actually a procedure probably on who is actually, by procedure and definition of all the fields that are on the application and what their process and what they're supposed to be doing. Their
It
responsibility.
is, it is, often happens that the applicant is someone with a purchase and sale agreement, and the purchase and sale agreement doesn't get consummated until after the application is approved.
It says
And
section.
this happens all the time.
Oh, actually, it says right here.
I see that, but I don't
Section
know what that
1.6.
document is.
Section 1.6 of the
Okay.
Milton Planning Board.
however, it would be helpful to know if you were quoting section 1.6
1.6 there.
of the rules and regulations
that would
or
have
of
to
the
be.
zoning. However,
Regulations, rules and regulations of the Milton Planning Board.
okay, however,
Yeah.
the Subdivision Control Act is done by state law. It is Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, 81L. So in any conflict, that would rule, not the boards, not the rules and regulations of the planning board, the state law.
The state law is what, on the applicant now?
Yeah,
This,
I see
yeah,
that.
application for approval of a definitive subdivision plan pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81-L. Subdivision Control Act is a state law.
It does, yeah, but you can't cite in that law exactly what the definition of applicant is. So if you can cite that for me.
No, we've got, it's actually in
Do you have it there?
1.6.
It is, says in 1.6.
It is 1.6,
Let's
that's
see what
right.
Mass General Laws has.
Emily, in his
Yeah.
letter, he asks without prejudice. Why
Yes.
would he want us to give him that?
I think that's
cliche?
standard
It
language.
is standard, but might he,
With prejudice might,
well, might he or
Prejudice
his
him?
assignee going to come
Because
back
he owns
quick?
the property until
Yeah.
he has the property under
Ah.
control until the end of October.
Actually, it's not till the end of October.
okay, here you go. Shall I read this? Or do
Well,
you confirm that we have the right one?
I confirm that it's on page 2 of the rules and regulations.
Yeah, under definitions.
Right.
So you read out the person who applies for the approval of a plan of a proposed subdivision or construction of a way. An applicant or applicants must be the owner or owners of all the land included in the proposed subdivision. The definition goes on to say an agent, representative, or his assigns may act for an owner, providing that written evidence of such fact is submitted. Evidence in the form of a list of the officers and designated authority to sign legal documents shall be required for a corporation. I would also say that having the commissioner actually sign off as owner and that Mr. Rosito as applicant meant that in the commissioner's eyes, he felt this was a legal document. I can't see him.
Well, I mean, I think that you've got a point that it does say that it should be the owner, so that the application was improper. But
We don't have one in front of us.
in other words, we probably don't have a application in front of us to allow to be withdrawn. But be that as it may, I think that you're absolutely right that the owner should sign on to these things. But there's Mr. Whiting has in no means had any opportunity to comment on our proposed decision, and whether or not he would approve it is something that I don't know, but
I think
we have to act by tomorrow. Well, you can't talk for him, he's the commissioner.
Right,
Yeah.
so he has to respond by tomorrow with.
No, it's,
No,
no.
because we have to act by tomorrow. We don't have a posted meeting tomorrow. We must act tonight. Now,
Okay, and then he can appeal, he can appeal.
he can appeal if he wishes to. Does anybody else wish to speak to this? No? No one else wishes to speak? All right, then. Do we have a motion?
Well, let's take a look at
Have
that.
make sure it's got the correct language.
The language that was read says that at the meeting, he requested a withdrawal, but he didn't appear at the meeting. So prior to the meeting, he submitted a letter requesting to withdraw.
Well, I mean, the letter,
That's his letter request.
Well,
the
it's just-
letter was presented to the board, so he requested it.
As I read that, it seems to me that he came to the meeting and requested this so that we would have an opportunity to ask him questions or something, but he submitted a request prior to the meeting.
He did, but it was brought to, it seems to me the request occurred at the meeting legally.
When we legally,
Well,
as
okay,
a
well,
board,
I-
receive
He
the
presented a
document in
document
public.
that
Yes.
requested it.
Well, the
When I read
document,
this, it
we
implies he
could
was
do
there.
that, but I don't think it needs to be fine-tuned excessively, because I don't think that, I think that this does the trick.
Well, we, as a board, do not receive the information until the meeting. We don't receive it until it's, as a collective body, it's at the meeting that we receive these. So yeah, I would say the language is fine. Anything else? I'm sorry, do you have any extra copies of the letter?
Yours.
That's mine.
I can get.
I can
Well,
print out another copy if I need to. Pass him.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Anything else?
All right, I move that the application for the definitive subdivision at 683, 685 Rush Hill Road be withdrawn, or is withdrawn, is hereby withdrawn without prejudice.
Second?
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
That's unanimous. All right, the next item on
Now
our...
we're going to sign this
Oh, yeah,
thing.
we do have to sign it. All right. I have a blue pen. Does everybody have a blue? I suppose if one of us has a blue pen.
Black one.
Do we only need 2 copies? Shouldn't there be a third?
Bill have a blue pen?
There needs a...
Well, there's a third up there.
Good one, okay.
Okay, so where's the third copy?
Bernie has it.
Ah, good.
Wait, want a nice felt blue pen?
You have a blue pen?
I know. Thanks, Pete.
Here you go.
Hi.
We'll trade papers.
Where? This is old.
Yeah, well,
Thank you. Alex?
Yeah, I know your husband has one just like it.
That's a good point, though.
He said he
that
has one just like it.
we should
Make sure that
the
owner...
It's so
applicants
old,
see
the
them.
thing is.
We should
There's
also
another one.
make
I
sure
missed
that
one,
the
Pete.
rules and
That's
regs are consistent with
All right,
Mass
thank
General
you.
law on that one. But I agree that either they're the owner or they provide documentation with the
yeah, I think I got 'em all.
application.
It's 3 copies?
3 copies. You've done one. There should be 2 more. That one's okay. That's fine.
Okay.
We have 2 down over here.
Yep. Alex needs to sign those. All right, what's next?
Well-
Oh, yeah, 597 Randolph. Yes,
You took my original copy,
I'm sorry.
What?
The application?
the application.
Should be under here. There's that one, there's that one, and there it is. Yeah, don't lose that.
Somehow I think it's not over yet.
That was an awful lot of work.
All right, so while Alex is signing those, I will start by saying the next item on our agenda is 597 Randolph Avenue. That is the old rectory site at St. Elizabeth's. And I have an update for you on that. I had hoped to have some of the signatories here. And I met with Father Walsh and Dr. Shea on Monday night as representatives from St. Elizabeth's. And I had actually been called by Dr. Shea to say that he'd seen the reports in the paper that the board was deeply concerned by the citizens' petition and wanted to have a chat. And so, as I said, I met with them on Wednesday night, and I said that the board was, in fact, deeply concerned, and also that we were interested in knowing what St. Elizabeth's intent for the property was, what they had wanted, and that we would like to meet with some of the people who had signed the petition. And unfortunately, because I met with them on Monday, both Father Walsh and Dr. Shea already had some events planned for tonight, so they couldn't be here. But we are looking to have them at another meeting They did express, and I'm a little disappointed, I was supposed to have gotten an email before this meeting from Father Walsh, but I'm sure he's busy too. They did express the wish that the planning board would assist them in looking at this zoning. Father Walsh said that what he is interested in is townhouses on the property that would range for roughly $300,000 to $400,000, and that he would certainly be interested in the idea of, as you know, the zoning was written with the title workforce housing, and there was information about town employees being able to buy, and he was happy with that, but he would also be interested in elderly people who are wanting to downsize from their homes being able to buy. And so that was actually a concern of his, that the language of the petition was not going to allow that. They certainly did not intend for the language to apply to all of Residence C, and really they're seeking the board's help in doing this. Now, on a separate matter, as you know, that citizens petition was submitted for a November special town meeting, and as I said at the last meeting, the selectmen were considering moving that to January. They have not yet set a date for the special town meeting. It's looking like it may be January or February, but obviously until we know that date, it's difficult for us to know how much time we have to consider this, and I'm hoping to contact them and find out what is happening with dates and what their intention is. So, but the idea would be that certainly the Father Walsh and Dr. Shea would, and presumably the citizens who signed this, would like to see this at the special town meeting rather than the annual town meeting. We did not talk timelines. And I have not had a chance to circle around and touch base with Anthony, as I just found out last night that he wasn't going to be here tonight. So that's sort of where it stands. I'd be very interested to hear, obviously, your concerns and questions. I did promise that I would touch back with them next week and let them know what the board was thinking. I would prefer not to have zoning. My personal preference is not to have zoning done by citizens petition. I think the ideas that they've brought up, I said, some of the things that you're thinking about is that you have, by submitting a petition that have workforce housing in it, you are opening up a chance to discuss affordable housing in Milton, and which is a discussion that is not unwelcome these days. I also mentioned that by introducing townhouses or duplexes, I think was the word that Anthony had used when talking to me, that introduces a new architectural form in Milton, and that town meeting may or may not be interested in doing that architectural form. I did also say that this isn't actually my preferred zoning for the site. I said if I were going to zone the site, I might zone it something different, but you are the property owner and have the right to bring something forward. And so, I personally am happy to discuss what it is that you want, but obviously the board will have to make the final decision on whether or not they want to begin talks. And it may be that what we want to do is explore it a little bit before making a final decision as to whether or not to take it to town meeting and what precisely we want to take to town meeting. I also said that they might look at different possibilities, or the board might look at different possibilities. They had put it down as an overlay, and they want an overlay. They do not want as-of-right zoning. But that they might look, or we might look at the cluster bylaw as well as a possibility for what they want to do. So I throw it open to you. This is a good time to bring forward some questions and concerns. And I'd like to know what your thinking is on this. Eddie?
Question, Emily, from
Yes.
what you just said.
Yeah.
Duplex, you use the term duplex and also
Townhouses.
townhouses.
Yeah.
Wouldn't Home Inc. fall into that category of townhouses?
It might do, actually. It's a little bit, and one of the questions, certainly with this project, it's a very, very visible site.
Right.
Obviously, whereas Home Inc. is tucked away. But yeah, you're right.
Okay,
That would probably
okay.
do. I hadn't thought of Home Inc.
Okay, thank you.
So that's a very good point.
Okay.
Oh,
Quistit Brook.
what?
Quistit Brook.
Quistit Brook, yeah.
The same, yeah.
Yeah.
phase 2, phase 1?
Yep. Alex?
I have a number of comments. I think that this site right on the corner of Randolph Avenue and Reesdale Road, elevated as is top of a wall, with two very, very busy streets. Their idea of putting 12 to 16 units in there with a driveway going between the two roads sounds to me like a built-in
Shortcut.
traffic disaster. I mean,
Yes.
the
And we discussed that.
and beyond that, they've come up with a sketch that is an extremely unattractive development. I
Yes.
mean, everyone in town, every day passing that site would say, gee, isn't it too bad they had to tear down that 1847 house and put this in, because it's all parking, all building, and there's no green, and it's, even if this sort of housing were to be good for some site in town, this certainly isn't the site.
We absolutely went over the problems with the site plan, because I agree with you. That site plan has extensive problems. We talked about the rationale behind what they were looking for, the issue of traffic, especially the issue of going in one side and coming out the other. The fact that the parking was in front, which is just poor design. They had said that the neighbors did not want headlights shining in their yards. And I said, that's understandable, but there are better ways of siting both the buildings and of putting buffers in that would prevent that. We talked about the fact that the houses were lined up like little soldiers, and that was also unattractive, and that there are ways of doing townhouses that look more like single-family homes and putting them on the site in such a way that they might look more like single-family homes in placement as well. So they're not wedded to the site plan. I think they agreed after discussion that it was not the best. But your point remains, Alex, which is even scattering the buildings on the site or clustering them in a little bit closer together to preserve the green space, there are significant traffic problems with that particular site. I absolutely agree with that.
Well, and the other thing is, we asked Mr. Risquito at the beginning here, at least my suggestion to him was, come in with an attractive site plan, because this zoning is intended for this lot. And if you can't come up with an attractive development,
Right.
why should we zone anything? And they have not. I mean, they've come up with I don't know if they had an architect do it, but they need to figure out what might work on that site that people would think was attractive. Because
Yes.
if it isn't attractive, it's such a visible site. Everyone passes every day. It's just they've got to come up with a site plan, and certainly. I don't see any point for the board to discuss workforce housing, which I looked a little bit, I did some work on it, and usually that's a workforce housing is a 40B development. It's not a zone development.
Yes, it can be.
Well,
I mean, it
it's
can be both, but
usually
yes,
is.
agreed.
Because they have all these restrictions on who you can sell to and how you can sell it and what you can do and this, that, and they need an administering agency, and
Exactly.
it costs money.
Yes.
And at $300,000 to $400,000, there are houses in Milton that you can buy for $300,000 to $400,000, and it seems to me that maybe that's better workforce housing because it already exists and it doesn't require doing this. I mean, 3 to 4, maybe 250 to 3 might be a range that isn't served very well, but 3 to 4 I think is served okay.
It would actually be interesting to have the statistics. Bernie?
Is Tacito was he at the meeting?
Lucido, no, he was not at the
I
meeting.
mean,
So this
who,
was, it was,
I know you said Richie Shea and
Yeah.
the father, but
yeah.
who is like the principal?
So Father Shea has the ultimate Father Shea, I knew I was going to do that.
Yeah.
Father Walsh. Father Walsh has the ultimate sign-off authority.
Oh, obviously.
Dr. Shea was the head of the committee that was looking
Okay.
into how to deal with the property. So obviously he has the interest in making sure that the process
Great
is
guy,
smooth.
he's a great guy.
It was a very nice conversation. As I said, we talked about a lot of things. I'm sure there were a lot of things that they didn't want to hear because it was, your site plan has problems. You've got the word. They were not wedded to the workforce housing, but we did talk about the fact that they wanted it to be more like a place for downsizing or possibly a starter home. And I said, one of the problems with that is, how long do you want that to happen? So, for example, you could develop something that's a starter home, say, in this economy, but 10 years from now, when the person goes to sell it, the next person buying it, it's not a starter home anymore. It's appreciated that much in value. And so I said, you have to think about, is it just for this market? Are you thinking of it as something that's at this reduced rate in perpetuity? And how would you deal with that? Would be a deed restriction, So there are issues in what you want. So we had a fairly long conversation about a lot of the elements that the board had expressed as concerns last time. I just said, here are some of the issues that we're going to bring up. I also spoke to Tom Callahan, because it had originally been written as workforce housing, to ask him for more information on affordable housing and things that might help us. And he's put me in touch with a few people that could provide resources for us to look at. And I spoke to Tabor Keeley, who's our representative to the MAPC, and he's put me in touch with a few people that might be able to get us some resources or expertise if we have questions on those. So I thought I'd do a little legwork before coming back to the board as far as finding out some information. So I will continue to follow up with that. Yes, absolutely.
I know Tom Callahan responded to this, that because it wasn't affordable housing, that it actually set us back in our meeting our guidelines, related to affordable housing. So there's certainly, if something like this was going to be proposed, we probably would require the 10% affordable units, or a minimum of 10% affordable units, even if it's workforce housing.
That would croak it pretty good.
Well, there's that question. Did you ask, or do you know whether this property is owned by the church or by the archdiocese?
It is owned, my understanding is that it's owned by the church.
And
But I
that
can
question was
clarify
asked?
that,
'Cause-
yeah. Well, they
'cause I know
talked, I mean, I didn't have to ask the question. They talked about the
Okay.
fact that it was owned
And
by
we
the
know
church.
that because I know there's been a lot of disputes going on with all this church closure, and there's been legal cases about, who owns these properties.
Not only is it owned by St. Elizabeth's, according to the information they gave me, they've actually been paying taxes on it for the last few years. I wrote down the number, but I don't have it.
Okay,
Say the last 10 years is a rough guess. I'll find out from my notes what that was. So, but they have been paying taxes, so it's actually currently on the tax rolls. And I also mentioned, Alex brought up the house. I said, I know the Historic Commission has a demolition delay on the house right now, and that's going to be a consideration for the board. I mean, if you look at original pictures of that house, it was before they put the
Addition.
yeah, exactly. It was actually a pretty little house. So, that will be a consideration in how we look at that, I'm sure.
The Historic Commission is meeting on it, I believe, on the 26th.
I know that they determined that it's historically significant. I don't know if they specifically voted to put a demolition delay on it. I don't know that.
I thought my letter said
Can't
demolition
do that until they
delay.
have that meeting.
Oh,
And
okay,
that
then I
meeting's
read
on
their
the
letter wrong.
26th.
Sorry, okay.
It's
They're
Monday.
considering it then.
They're
I know
considering whether to
Anthony's
do it.
filed for a demolition permit.
Which would trigger the,
Right.
Unless he
My
mistake.
withdraws,
I
read
unless he
the letter that
withdraws his
said historic-
application.
Public hearing, there was notification,
Yeah.
there were legal ads in the paper.
I wonder who the applicant for a demolition permit has to be.
I'm sure the building department will take care of that. Anthony does have a purchase and sale. So I haven't seen it, but that's what I've been told.
Whatever that means, now that we're learning more about this.
Land issues are complex. I'll just say that and leave it there. So what I guess I'm really asking is, are you willing to follow this a few more steps and see where it leads? See if we can get some people who actually signed the petition in, get Father Walsh and or Dr. Shea, I got it right this time, in to talk to us, bring Anthony back and see if we can find out a little bit more about whether or not it's actually possible to do what they want to do on the site. It doesn't commit us to taking it to town meeting, it just commits us to the next few steps to see. I did tell them that if they were going to go to town meeting, not only that would they need a full site plan, we'd need to know what the buildings were going to look like. And town meeting would want to see what the buildings would look like. So full drawings on that, no little boxes on.
Well, I mean, it's a little late for that. I
Very
mean,
late.
their zoning is their zoning, and obviously, 12 units an acre is, in my view, unacceptable
Very dense.
on that site.
Oh, hang on.
It's 12 units on 63,000 square feet, so it's an acre and a half.
Is that what they say? I thought the zoning says 12 units an acre.
My understanding is that they would be happy to completely scrap the zoning that was presented to us.
Well, it's a
And-
citizen's petition.
I mean, I'm sure that that's right, but you remember when the Temple Shalom
Yes, I
matter
do.
was referred to us, it said, okay, go develop some zoning for this. I mean, we spent half a year meeting all the time trying to do that, and I have no desire to do that here, especially since I don't think that this site is appropriate for what they're proposing. And I know what they're proposing. They're proposing doubling or tripling the density, the usual density in the C zone for this particular lot. And there are many more suitable lots that if you wanted to double or triple the density could be used, you know, out of the way, like Home Inc. You sort of hide them. You don't put them up on a hill. So I think that what I would suggest to them, rather than have people come in and say, yes, yes, we want it, have them come in with a site plan that is able to have people generally say, you know, this is really attractive, we should explore this. And I don't think they're going to be able to do that.
Okay.
And I don't see much point in trying to make a silk purse out of this sow's ear.
Anybody else?
I don't, you know, I mean, I continue to think that, you know, we shouldn't take the lead on this. They should come in and tell us what they've got in mind, and I think present a site plan. I don't think that there is any way to do it for a special town meeting, even if the special town meeting is in January or something. It just takes too long. Every other proposal we've gone through, you know, has taken much longer than that. So I don't think it's really feasible to do that. So, you know, I don't think it's a great idea for that site, and, you know, we need some convincing to do that.
Anyone else? Bernie?
Well, I understand 100 people signed the petition.
147. I have a copy of their signatures somewhere.
I would not want
My
to say
stack.
no to 140 people. Let's at least air it, and you've got a Catholic priest, you've got Dr. Shea, respected in the community. See what they come up with.
The thing that I still don't understand, there is a citizen's petition that's been
Yes.
filed. Doesn't the town have to accept and put that citizen's petition on the warrant unless it's withdrawn?
Exactly,
So I
unless it's
think
withdrawn.
they should withdraw it, and then we can talk about
They
it.
are willing to withdraw it if we're willing to work with them.
You need all 100?
I'm finding out what the
I think
procedure
you
is.
need all 100 to withdraw it.
Did you find it
I
out?
asked the question of Mr. Mullins' office today.
Okay.
No, I think the extra 47 probably. I don't know how it works. Maybe you need
That's,
all 147.
Bill is about to tell you.
Okay, how does it work?
When I went to Mr. Mullins' office today, they came back with, you do not need the whole 147. We've never had a citizen petition get withdrawn like this. What they suggested is that we get the pastor to write a letter to the selectmen rescinding the submission.
Okay.
I don't think that he can do that. Even though I understand that the petition,
I think the
Was-
letter that he wrote that goes with it.
Oh, no, it's the one right on top, yes.
Oh, you've got the petition?
Yeah, I've got the petition. The whole thing. He wrote it, "To whom it may concern. Enclosed, please find a citizen's petition to allow multifamily housing in a Residence C district in the town of Milton. We have secured 147 signatures on 22 pages. We request that the Board of Selectmen insert this article in the warrant for the next scheduled special town meeting. Prayers and best wishes, Reverend Aidan J. Walsh, pastor." And then it's got the, oh, I misspoke. I'm sorry, it was draft 2 that had the workforce housing on it. It's now multifamily housing.
so it's
This is a new citizen's petition?
No, this is the same citizen's petition. It's just I saw the previous 2 drafts as I was commenting on them. You guys did all read
Can I
the
see
memo
this?
that I sent you, right?
What's that?
Always do.
The one that I sent you before the last meeting that had my red lines of all the
Yeah.
information I'd received? Okay.
Wouldn't it be, they need 100 signatures?
For a special town meeting, they need 100
just- if
signatures.
they just-
This memo, this is the
I
one.
guess maybe if they get 48 people
Exactly.
to withdraw
Withdraw,
their,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm
That would work.
confused.
Well, actually, I have to say, guys, it's not up to us as to how they withdraw it. It's up to the Board of Selectmen.
Well,
They're the ones
I
who
mean,
determine
I think it's
we
state
don't
law.
require that they withdraw it.
No, what I mean is
It
the
simply is,
procedure for
if they
withdrawing
want to
it.
withdraw it, they've got to do it, or we're
That's the
going to
memo
have
that
a
I
public
Yeah, that's
hearing
what
on it.
Emily prepared.
The thing that I don't understand,
Yeah.
I saw the language of the workforce housing, and I specifically asked if that was the language that was contained in the citizen's petition. I was told that it was.
There were
But this is
3
different.
drafts. This does not have the citizen's petition in it.
What was the
We were
draft?
given the citizen's petition at the last meeting, correct? Did you give us the,
No.
What does
This
it-
is the first
what-
we've
what-
seen it.
all right, so we need,
What draft
Diane,
does
we need
it
to.
say that they were
Doesn't,
were
they didn't
signing?
put, they didn't put the draft number on anything.
Well, when
when-
was draft 3 written? Was it before or after the
Draft?
citizens
No.
signed?
Draft 3 is what the citizens signed, because I had drafts 1 or 2,
think
and when
so.
I looked at, when
I
I,
think they
wait,
changed it.
hey, when I looked at the citizens petition, it did not match the first 2 drafts that I had. So I assumed it was draft 3. It could be 4, 5, or 6. All I know is,
draft is this?
I don't, that's the citizens petition. All I
two?
know is it didn't match the first 2 that I had.
Okay, well, I think
That's-
that definitely
that was
that
the
draft
petition.
is what they signed.
That's what they
because,
signed.
Well, they signed the last page.
Well, presumably they had the whole draft. Now you're being cynical.
No, okay.
Well,
Whatever,
in any
whatever.
event, in any event, whatever draft it is, it's not good zoning.
No,
And,
agreed.
It,
Look,
yeah, I guess the problem I have is that we're trying to do something for a little lot, a little very visible lot, and what the effort is doesn't make any sense from a planning perspective or for the best interest of the town, I don't think.
so here's my question to you. And you brought up the temple, so I'll bring it up as well. That initially came to us as a citizen's petition. And it went to town meeting as a citizen's petition. And a lot of people got up and spent a lot of time getting entrenched in their positions, both for and against that. And then it was sent back to us, and I noticed in the process that people both for and against that zoning stood and talked to us all, worked with us all, but nobody actually really changed their position on that. It was all entrenched in the citizens' petition at town meeting. There might have been a few people who went one way or the other, but people made public statements, and the vast majority of them, pro and con, stuck to those public statements. The temple set a precedent for citizens doing zoning by citizen petition. I think that's a bad precedent. And so now what we've got is somebody who's followed that precedent, a group that's followed that precedent, and who has said, okay, this is bad zoning, we agree with you. Now we'd like to withdraw the petition and work with you to take something to town meeting. Something that my goal would be is good enough that town meeting either votes yes or no, but they don't send it back to us, because the zoning itself is good enough that town meeting can actually debate the purpose of the zoning and not the flaws in the zoning. That's what I'd like to see. I would like us to actually be proactive in working with citizens. We don't have to agree with the zoning. In fact, we could state that we disagree with the zoning. I've already said that this is not my preferred zoning for this site. But I think that town meeting deserves to have zoning that they can actually debate, and not zoning where whoever's chair at the time, because I'm talking about this possibly being a precedent that's followed in the future, whoever's chair at the time has to get up and read 10 minutes worth of flaws, and town meeting has to spend their time listening to it. I think town meeting deserves better than that. So I'd like to establish a precedent whereby people feel comfortable coming to the board and saying, I have this property, I'd like to do this, it requires a zoning change. Will you actually sit there and talk to me about how this might or might not work? That's all I'm trying to do here. Yes, Ed?
Emily, a few minutes ago you mentioned that Father Walsh asked us to start over. Something to that effect? Was that
He and Dr. Shea were asking us to start over and work with them.
Well, okay, but they have to start over too.
They have to start over too,
Okay.
agreed, yes.
Okay, that's my point.
They would be,
We all started,
my understanding from the conversation we had on Monday is they are happy to junk all of the zoning that they've requested in the petition
Okay.
and start completely from scratch. Having said that, their stated desire is the townhouses.
so they
So it's, yes, you're right, it's not a complete start over. They would like the townhouses. On the other hand, they haven't come in and talked to the full board. So, you know, it's up to you to suggest other possibilities, which they may or may not. I mean, they are the property owner. It's the same thing we run into any of the other property
But
owners.
of course, spot zoning is illegal, so as a
Spot zoning
property
is
owner,
illegal.
they could never come up with a proposal for their property alone.
No, they wouldn't. They would have to find other sites
Right.
that the zoning would
So
also
it-
be appropriate
it-
to. That may not be possible.
They may be the property owner, but since spot zoning is illegal,
Yes, and I told
that
them
doesn't
that.
make any difference.
But
And I would add, AA zoning came in through a citizen's petition.
Did it really?
Yes,
I did
it
not
did.
know that.
It did.
See, good having you around, Alex. My point is, are we willing to at least take the next steps of having the conversation with them? Finding out what they want to do. And I mean,
We know what they want to do.
well, we know what they want to do, but the point is, they've only had the conversations with me.
They want to
I
double or
personally,
triple the density.
I believe that they should come in and have the conversation with the full board. I am trying to come here and report the conversations I've had offline so that you all are fully aware of what's going on. But at some point, they need to come in
Want me to make a motion?
and tell you. You know, we don't need a motion, I just like a consensus.
a meet and greet.
A chat on television
Yep.
in front of the public to say, this is what we're trying to do, and this is, we'd like your help. That's what I'd like from them. I'd like to know if you'd be receptive to that question.
One yes vote right here.
Okay.
Yeah, if, you know, if they want to come in and talk about their ideas, you know, the citizens and, you know, some of the signatories, be happy to hear what they have in mind.
Okay.
No, but again, I just said, Emily, we both start over
Okay.
as best as we can. Sure.
I have no objection to them coming in, but I would say that if they don't come in with an attractive site plan and talk platitudes, it's not going to be worthwhile. They'd better get a site plan together that is attractive and is something that the people in the town can support, because if they can't show us that, talking about let's do vague generalizations is not going to be productive.
Would it be worth having them come in before producing the site plan so
don't.
they get feedback as to what we would consider attractive? Or you think they should
This
come in with
is,
the site plan first?
basically, it's wide open. They want to plunk down 14 houses on this acre lot and
12
come up-
units,
all right,
6 buildings.
12 units, however they want to do it. Come in with a site plan that shows you can attractively do that. It doesn't cause problems, because coming in and saying we want to put 12 units on and help us determine how we can do it is something for the architects.
Okay, then I'll let them know that we're willing to talk to them, but they should do some more thinking about the site plan first, so that we have something to look at and discuss with them. Bring in a physical site
Alex,
plan.
I'm sorry, we did this for the temple. We spent months trying to help them craft what they wanted to achieve. It was unfortunate that it ended up that,
It was referred to us by town meeting.
yeah.
Town meeting referred it to us.
But we did
We
indeed,
spent the
but
time.
I'm not willing to put the amount of time I put into the temple zoning. I'm not willing to do it again for myself, but if someone else here wants to take the lead in writing the zoning, that's fine. But until I am convinced they've got something that's worthwhile, and
that was a year process. They're talking about something between now and
Yes, they
November.
are.
well, I
November.
mean, it's now in November is ridiculous.
Well,
It's
that
not
we don't
gonna
know until we
happen.
know when the selectmen are doing it could be now in December. And if it were the annual town meeting, it would be now in roughly January before we'd have to put the zoning in. So the timing is tight either way.
It's not going to happen. It has, it
Annual
would be
town
tight
meeting
for
is the
annual
fastest.
town meeting.
It would be tight for that.
But there's no way it would be, there's no way that zoning could be developed for a special town meeting.
I know today's paper suggested that the selectmen were going to open and close the warrant on the 17th of November.
That would not
Now,
give us
they
very
might
much
still
time. I
have
didn't see that.
flexibility, but that's, you know,
It gives us a little bit more time, but you're right, that's not very much time. So I agree. The special town meeting was problematic always. It was too tight a timeline. I absolutely agree on that.
An annual may be too tight, too.
Which actually, if you don't mind closing this, I'll report back to them that we're interested in talking, but we have site plan questions and concerns and timeline questions and concerns. But that does bring us to our new business, which is the May 2012 annual town meeting and what we would like to have on it. So I wanted to start the discussion on that now, because you're pointing at things. I'm in order. We've done everything else. We even did your town planners report.
I know, but the one about.
You can do it again if you like.
No, the one that we had in there that Mr. Sheffield gave us last time.
Yes,
Right.
he's here.
Okay.
I'm going to have him,
That comes in,
yes,
all right.
yeah, I haven't forgotten about you. So, all right, so we have a couple of things. As Bill reminded me, Mr. Sheffield has requested that we consider an article. We've also had some requests from the building commissioner that we consider some articles. I had one or two ideas myself, but unfortunately I was working fairly late this week, so I couldn't get you the documents. So I will pull those together. But I'm bringing this up now because as far as timelines go, we have to get the zoning in, the article request into the selectmen the first week in January. So if anybody has anything that they've been thinking about, now and the next 2 meetings are probably really good times to bring those up so we can get cracking on those. So you should still have the information from the building commissioner, but if you don't, he had asked us to look at whether or not to add accessory equipment such as air conditioning, condensers, pool pumps and heaters, and other similar equipment to the definition of accessory structure, and also to talking about commercial vehicles and whether or not we should be looking at parking on the street of commercial vehicles. So that was given to us, or it's dated July 28th, so we should probably pull that up. And I was going to ask Mr. Sheffield to come and remind us of what he brought to our attention last meeting about the, I'm blanking.
Assisted living.
Assisted
Thank
living.
you, I knew it began with an A, assisted living. So if you wanted to come forward and have a chat with us? Had you revised? Yes.
I only did 3 of these to
Okay.
show the whole thing, but I gave
Do you have this?
how it fits in.
Thank you. I think that's what you gave us before.
Yes, at
Yes.
the last meeting, I suggested that the planning board might entertain the possibility of bringing up at the next special town meeting some provision that would permit under certain circumstances, the consideration of assisted living facilities and possibly also nursing homes. It would seem as though they might vary greatly from one to another based on size, based on services to be rendered, et cetera. It may just be possible to permit them as allowed uses, either on all streets or maybe on streets that are highways, if you will, so that you won't be getting them in back streets. And then leaving it to the planning board to do site plan review and obtain a permit based on all the considerations that are involved in site plan. I gave a suggested change to start the ball rolling, and I gave the simplest possible change that I could envision, and that was to change a few words in section 3A8 of the use portion of the bylaw, and also putting in the parking section certain minimum parking regulations that I think would be necessary for either an assisted living facility or a nursing home.
Okay, and just to clarify, for anybody who's not sitting at home with their zoning regulations, these use regulations would be residence AA, A, B, and C district uses. So you would not restrict the ability of these to be to one particular district. It would be whether or not they could match the parking
That's correct.
requirements. So the lot would have to, you're not looking for a specific lot size, it would have to be large enough to accommodate the building, the parking,
Yes.
presumably open space as well. Okay.
Yes, but it could be in any of the districts as they exist.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? You've had a couple of weeks to think about it. Obviously, we're not making a decision tonight.
Obviously
just adding
Obviously.
the opportunity to ask you some questions or to put it up for discussion, as well as the items from the building commissioner.
I did have one, and that was on your bottom one where it says modify section 7C. I don't think you meant 7C. I think you meant 7B.
Okay.
Because 7C is parking requirements in business districts.
Okay.
And you didn't mean that, you meant to put it,
No, 7B.
parking requirements in resident AA, A, B, and C.
Right.
I actually took and redlined the specific pages for each of you. This would be, this is the one that goes with 7. And you don't have your books to show the zoning. I had 3 copies of
So I've got two.
all the
here.
regulations
That's
as
about
they go
you
out.
guys. I didn't mean to have two.
Alex has a book, Eddie doesn't.
Well, yeah,
I have a book too.
having red line things is nice, but
Shows
No,
how
these
that, how
aren't-
what
these are-
Mr. Sheffield submitted would fit in.
right, there's a lot of space on this page.
We could,
Put a lot more in there.
Well, I mean, there's obviously a lot more that has to go in there. My own feeling is that this has to be a special permit process. There have to be determinations of how big a building it can be, how much land is necessary. And
Design guidelines.
not because, well, no, the site plan review, unfortunately, is if you allow the use, you can't deny it through site plan approval. You can just sort of push it.
no, you said special permit. I was adding design guidelines to the special permit
Well,
requirement.
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Design guidelines and you know, the constraints that have to be operated within, how much open space, how much, you know, what sort of architecture, how high, et cetera, et cetera.
What kind of streets, those kind of things.
What kind of streets, what kind of parking.
Right.
I think the idea of allowing assisted living facilities is a good one. There's, you know, just more and more need all the time, and we don't have that. So I think taking a look at that would be a productive thing to do. I don't know, Bill, if you could put a query out to your planner network, or, you know, do a little research on how other communities have handled it. You know, whether it's a separate section in their bylaw or just, you know, a permitted use. Because I think, you know, there's probably, we don't have to start from ground zero. I think there's a number of ways to do it. But I would want to have a site plan review, that level of control.
At a minimum.
At a
I think
minimum,
that's
and then,
special permit would
not
be a-
special permit,
Site plan,
special permit.
We would have that, but special permit.
Yeah,
Special
exactly.
permit, definitely.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I think our challenge would be to look at what kind of criteria for location and site planning and
Right.
design that get us the kind of facility that we'd hope to see.
There are certainly some beautiful, beautiful examples of assisted living facilities and nursing homes out there where people have taken a lot of care in the design. And that's obviously the sort that we would like to have here.
But I think that, you know, the Central Avenue experience that we've had, and that we do have, we have a roadmap there as to how the developer is supposed to operate. And usually, you know, when a pushback is necessary to the developer, citing something in the zoning is very, very useful, because
Yes,
if
it is.
there's nothing there, they simply say, their architect says, well, this is
Right.
great.
Well, that actually brings me to what I was going to propose, but it may not be, we may not have enough time to do it for the annual town meeting. So I'll throw it out there and let you know that I'll bring you documents later, which
Gonna
is...
write it up over the weekend.
Yeah, really. No. I'm going to bring you documents from other towns. I'm interested in design guidelines for the current commercial areas of our town. So I can see you. Oh, good. That's handy. I thought you might. I've got stuff from work as well, as you might imagine.
You mean related to facade improvements and
Facade improvements, if people take down or substantially rehabilitate a building that's there. We've got 3 very well-defined commercial districts, but you know, change happens, as we found with what we're doing. And I think certainly my impression of the experience we've gone through in the Central Avenue area is that the more design guidelines you can give, the easier it is for us to say, okay, here's the criteria that we have set out. These are the criteria that we're judging you on. It's less likely that they're going to come with something that is wildly outside of those criteria. Now, I'm saying guidelines and not standards. Standards they must meet. Guidelines are a little bit more flexible. So standards, you have to have a pretty good reason for putting standards in, but guidelines are a little bit more flexible. So I'll get you information on that, but certainly in discussions with people in the past and in our famous master plan survey, improving and encouraging our current commercial districts rated fairly highly. And I think this might be something that we'd be willing to look at.
And we should review the summary of the comments to see what people said about that.
So I'm not just
How are
making
they-
it up.
how are they
Well, I
coming?
know you keep it all on your desk so that you can,
We're waiting the
We're
summary.
We're waiting for the summary
I gave you the summary years ago. It's a-
of the essay comments.
Oh, not of the essay comments. This is I'm just talking about the quantitative responses. It was in there in the quantitative responses. You guys don't pay me enough to do the essay questions.
Well, certainly these ideas in and of themselves give us more than a full plate to get ready for the annual town meeting. There was also discussion over this past year, the past 2 years, about, you know, taking a look at updating the cluster bylaw, and I don't know if
Yes.
that's still something that's on the table or not.
That's something on the
You
table.
remember that 683, 685 Brush Hill Road, when we
Proposed
discussed
cluster.
the cluster bylaw, people in general in that neighborhood thought that it was fine, the density that was there. And if we
Yes.
were to increase it, it would perhaps be by 1 or 2 units, just to,
And even that
Add a
didn't do very
sweetener.
well in that
but it didn't,
neighborhood.
that did not do well.
That's true, but I think, Alex, you've expressed in the past that our current cluster bylaw doesn't give many developers an incentive to use it. So we would have to consider how to balance that incentive with the needs of the residents in the area.
Carrots.
Carrots and sticks. The other thing, Alex, I remember you saying, and this was many, many years ago, is that you, I think at one point, thought it'd be interesting to have a fall town meeting just on zoning. So,
I said that?
yes, you did. I remember because it was at a warrant committee meeting.
I can hardly believe that.
It was at a warrant committee meeting, and you sat at the other end of the table, and
For a
you,
short special town meeting.
and you said, you know, if we're really lucky, it was something in order, if we're really lucky, we could have this Falls Town meeting just on zoning, and wouldn't that be fun? Those were your exact, well, not quite your exact words.
Why
but
in the fall,
it wouldn't be
Alex?
fun. Wouldn't it be
I
fun?
remember you
Was
saying
definitely
that,
there.
but, you know.
You
So,
weren't there,
so what you're suggesting is rather than aim all these things for May, that we ought to aim for November? Is that what
I'm
you're saying?
suggesting we
Or
might
next
consider.
September, perhaps.
Next September. yeah.
Next-
We might want to consider aiming some for the fall instead of the spring if we find that our plate is a little too heavy. Maybe the easier ones we could do at the annual town meeting where would be less discussion needed for them, and the more difficult ones requiring more discussion would be at a potential fall. Of course, the selectmen hearing this are probably having heart attacks, going, what is this woman doing? So.
I think the selectmen are all watching.
Yes, undoubtedly.
Anything else on 2012? Anybody have any other
I
suggestions?
move that we adjourn.
Second.
No? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great,
Aye.
thank you all. Thank you.